If a midget is a little man, then I'm a midget. I mean, you know, if a silver dollar was a little man, then I'd be a silver dollar. I guess I'm a little man.
Space change, man.
Oh, sorry, man, but I'm a little short. My name is Mike Anderson. I'm 3.5 feet tall, and I'm 28 years old.
Oh, look at that man.
If you wanted to get down to the technical, I'm not a dwarf. I am not a midget. I have osteogenesis imperfectus. Perfecta. And I've had over 300 broken bones. But, you know, it didn't seem like that was any big problem to me until I got the idea that everybody else wasn't getting 300 broken bones. And I saw their reaction to my having them. And then it dawned on me that something was going on. But not until I got more social. I don't like, I go into environments and the people are so, they're concerned about my feelings, I know. And they're so considerate that they don't even glance my way. I could throw 20 plates straight down as hard as I could, and they could fly into a million pieces like a bomb. And nobody would even notice. In some places. That I don't like. I don't like people to punish their children for getting excited about seeing me. I would rather they let the kids run up and ask me, "What are you?" And then I would give me a chance to tell the kid. I have a friend who has an ice cream truck. We call it Ramblin' Froze. I like to ride around all day selling ice cream to little kids, make a couple bucks. Go get your money.
That's right, folks. It's an ice cream truck. So hurry on down, because we're going to have a whole lot of fun.
What? Go to the quarter. Okay, and here they are. Okay, here you go. Banana popsicle, 4-bomb pop. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a good day. I love to laugh. Loud and long and clear. I love to laugh. So everybody can hear. The more I laugh, the more I fill with glee. And the more the glee, the more I'm a merrier me. I'm grateful for my point of view. I'm grateful for it on lots of different levels. I'm grateful for the chance to be a human. You know, the human, to be inside a human brain, you know, the brain, you know, I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for having a unique perspective. For being in a spot that is feared by many. That, you know, I'm grateful for the feeling that life itself is a 1 in a billion shot. And I'm grateful for everything in my individual existence. All the love and acceptance that I have found for just in the world. Yeah, I'm still afraid of all the acceptance that I don't get, and I would rather be laughed at than ignored. I would rather be totally exposed than unseen. And so I mean, I'm grateful for the amount of attention that I attract. And so it seems like acknowledging your littleness is in some way necessary in order to keep from being too aggressive. You have to go in and say, that's right, I'm little. You know, and see if you can get an honest reaction. And when you get an honest reaction, that's when you're normal.
Hey!
How's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good?
You like kids?
Yeah, for the most part I do. I don't like all kids. How can I tell you that I love you? I love you, but I can't think of right words to say. And I long to tell you that I'm always thinking of you. I'm always thinking of you, but my words just blow away. It always adds up to one thing, honey, and I can't think of right words to say. Wherever I am, I'm always walking with you. I'm always walking with you, but I look and you're not there. Whoever I'm with, I'm always talking to you. I'm always talking to you, but I'm sad that you can't hear. When I was first born, it was in a real small town in Huron. The doctors didn't know too much, I guess. So when I was first born, the assumption that they made was that I didn't have any bones in my legs. The fact of the matter was that they had broke my legs in all kinds of different places when I was born, and now they believed that there were no bones in there. And then I caught pneumonia in the hospital, and they thought I was going to die. And I remember my mom said that she asked the doctor if it would be all right if I traveled. And he said, well, if you're not planning on leaving before a couple weeks, you won't have to worry about it. So rather than wait the couple weeks, they took off immediately. And when they got to Los Angeles, that was all the latest technology, and they knew, that I had osteogenesis imperfectus, and they knew, that I had bones and stuff like that, and they started taking care of me. And so I went to a special school. We moved to Denver in order to go to Betcher School. It's like during my childhood, I broke bone after bone. I remember I rode a tricycle off the step and wrapped my arm around it, and just a whole bunch of them. But to the point where all my bones were all real bent and curved, and I was in a wheelchair. And I went to Betcher, and I had this surgery where the doctor he'd go in and slice the bone up in different angles and turn them around to where the bone was straight, thread them on a steel pen, put it back in and sew it all up, put a cast on it, and have it get better. Well, after doing it, didn't always work the first time and stuff. I have friends where it didn't work the first time, and that was it. They'd had enough, and that was it. But like my father's attitude everything, and which was ingrained in me too, was you do it and you keep doing it until you do it right. And so we just kept on operating again and again and again until, and I'm glad we did, because now it works. I've only been walking for a couple years, but it's a big difference. It's a big difference in the social acceptance I get. It's a big difference in trying to meet the architectural barriers that are present in the environment. And it's a big difference out in the wilderness. So here it is. This is the wheelchair I grew up in, that I went to school in, just went everywhere with. It works pretty good, but I'm glad to be rid of it, I'll tell you that for sure. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's not just because it's physically easier to be without it, but because of all the reactions to it. You know? The rehab office, the Colorado Division of Rehabilitation, sent me to the CEAC, the Career Education and Assessment Center, and they tested my abilities. They gave me math problems. They told me to screw little nuts onto the screws. They told me to trace mazes. They asked me which direction wheels would be turning if other wheels were turning this way. They saw how strong I was. They saw how tall I was. They saw everything. They tried to assess my abilities. And then they punched up a number for each one of the characteristics and fed it into the computer, who matched it up with a list that it had of ability requirements of every job everywhere. Well, so I guess the idea was I was supposed to then pick out jobs that were that I liked, and the computer would tell me how likely I would be to succeed or to make it in that field. So that's what I did. I said, I know, I'll be a geological engineer. And the counselor said, hey, all right. Oh, look, the computer, the factors are X, Y, and Z. You chances aren't good. All right, then, I'll be a music teacher. Hey, that's a... Oh, wait, look, the factors here say that the odds aren't good. Well, one by one, I exhausted the possibilities of things that attracted me. So finally I said, what does the computer like? It said, well, here at the top, it gives these two an equal chance. Electronics engineer or engineering draftsman. I thought about the two. One was drawing pictures, the other was like fixing Tinker Toys together. I decided I could relate to Tinker Toys better than drawing pictures. So I went for the electronics engineer. I mean the electronic technician. Well, damned if it wasn't right. I went to the ETI school. I was right up there in the top of the class. I had everything it took to be an electronic technician. And when I got out of school, I had several job offers. I took the one I wanted. I'm working at Martin Marietta, working on this ground control for the space shuttle, and computers don't lie. I can't admit it. And you know, it's cool because I was, like I said before, I was ready to go. PhD in psychology, man that makes keys, a guy that plays music on the sidewalk, you know. I didn't care what it was I was going to be doing. And this is kind of like, I felt like that the society asked me to do it. Well, if you don't care what to do, we'd like you to do this. And so that's why I like it, because they seem to have asked for it. They want it. And they do approve of it. They give me money. So it worked, and I like electronics too. It's a perfect mirror of the intellect. There's an electronic analogy for everything in life. uh, and it's exciting too. Not just the money, but the feeling of power that I can create phenomena that I could not create before. It's like an art too. It's beautiful, like music. I wake up every morning at 5:30 and drive across town to where I work at Martin Marietta, troubleshooting the computer boards for the control, checkout, and monitoring subsystem of the space shuttle. Ideally, I would like to move into outer space. I would like to live in outer space. I don't care whether I'm going to a star, or whether I'm in orbit, or just sitting out there in some spot in space, in some laboratory, or just an experimental community. Ideally, I would like to move into space. And that electronics, I have a feeling that the outer space environment will be heavily electronic. And so for that reason, I think that this would be useful for doing that. This is moving to space is about the best thing I can think of to do with electronics and with technology. And no, it's not the. And also, besides move humanity into space, we can try and use the technology to ease the spirit, and to communicate. I used to live with this girl named Carol. She was a normal-sized girl. I lived with her for about 4 years steady, 2 years on and off. We loved each other. We really helped each other with our self-confidence and self-esteem, and with my sexuality and seeing myself as a sexy person and stuff. Eventually we had to break up because we wanted different things out of life and saw life as different thing. And I guess I'm still looking for what I want. I had moved away from my friends and moved into a little place all by myself, and nobody knew where I was living. Just a couple people could come over, and I was being real hermit-like. And then this friend who lived up in the mountains, up in South Dakota, he just happened by for a couple days and said, "Man, we really want you to come up there. It won't cost you anything. You won't have to do any work. We just want somebody to play with." And so, the books I were reading were always saying, change, flow, move, don't cling. So I packed up and moved to the Black Hills of South Dakota. And it was a strange situation because all of the men were real men. They were mountain men, and they would hunt, and they would cut the wood, and they would build things. And I wasn't a particularly good woodcutter, and I wasn't a particularly good hunter, and I wasn't real famous for building things either. And the women, on the other hand, were all into cleaning and sewing and cooking and things like that. And well, I may be able to do those things, when I'm doing it at the same time as them, I tended to be more in the way. So it was like my role was to stay out of the way. Every morning, I couldn't stay in the house. I was in the way there, and, I couldn't chase after the men hunting. And so I was simply turned out to play every day. And in the evening, I would come home and get fed, and we'd play games. And in the morning, I would get up and be turned out to play. And I noticed there were some others that had the exact same role that I had. The dogs. Every morning, they weren't allowed in the house during the day. They were let out in the morning to play in the woods all day, and came home at night to eat and be petted and play with the masters. And so I knew that I was one of the dogs, but that I was the head dog, because wherever I walked was where all the dogs would go. If I headed east, all the dogs would go east. If I headed north, all the dogs would go north. So I knew I was the head dog. Yeah. And that was so, it was so good because I was chanting my mantra, and there was no way to aggrandize myself in any way. If I talked about the cosmic stuff, they all thought I was a nut. I couldn't talk about the hunting and the building or the cooking and the sewing. There was nothing to do at all but simply be friendly, which was my job, which was why I was there, for companionship. And you know, so, just like the dog, you know. But it was in that atmosphere where I was accepted. I mean, I was placed in a lowly position, not allowed out of the lowly position, and fully accepted in the lowly position. And it was there, reading books about the Tibetan Book of the Great Liberation, the book on how not to meditate. You know, that was for after I had got to where I chanted mantra all the time. This book was how not to chant mantra and be still. And it was in that atmosphere that I saw myself shining in the void. And when I went back to Denver, I felt like I had something to teach at last, you know. So for a while I was a guru. They were all trying to see themselves in the void. And I was going into myself. And after a while, the ones that could see themselves in the void saw themselves in the void and went into themselves, and the ones that could not got disillusioned. You know how a little kid asks stuff like about before he was born and stuff like that, his parents' expectations and stuff. Yeah. And I remember asking my mom when they were having a little baby, if the thing that they were hoping for would be this little boy who would be in a wheelchair and broke bones easy. And to me, everything seemed just great. It would be perfectly normal that that's what someone would want, you know? But instead, her answer was no, that we had hoped that it would just be a normal little boy. And it hit me like a curtain or a wall. Or, you know, it dawned on me that I was a wrong baby. You know what I mean? And that I wasn't, that I had not fit the expectations from the word go. You know, before I was even aware of anything myself. The only man, power was real important to him, and he was always trying to give me power, and I just couldn't get power too well. He got me a gun. You know, he learned how to shoot this gun real good, that's power. And I broke my arm trying to cock the gun. And that was just an epitome of the way it always went. With him trying to give me power and me somehow not being able to do it or something. But, you know, I'd break my arm up in the woods and stuff, but he gave me a good attitude about the breaking arms and really about everything. Because after he realized that I was just going to break my arm or leg or whatever, he got a calf kit so that he could just put the cast on wherever we were out in the wilderness, hundreds of miles from civilization. I'd fall in the river and break my arm, and he'd put a cast on and we'd go on. And it got to be where we were very nonchalant about it. And that's good because I'm nonchalant about it today, which is convenient. You know, and also it just gave me the idea that you do what you want to do no matter what gets in the way. You know, you don't worry about the various little obstacles in the path. If you don't overcome the obstacles, you're not going to do anything. Kind of like that. I go
these people...
Instead of howling at the moon like a dog, I think I'd just like to howl at the moon like a human. How does a human howl at the moon, Dan? I think it has to sound sad and lonesome. As you howl at the moon, see? Oh! Oh! Can you imagine if there was a tribe of about 1,000 people up in these woods all doing that?